You are now entering the Luxecore Studios. And you've secured a seat for the Protecting Your Radius podcast. Here, we build connections from your contracting profession to some of the top bleeding edge products and services. Don't get deterred. Let's not delay. Here is your host, Nathan Downs.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Protecting Your Radius podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Downs. And today in studio, we have for, the the trifecta, Mr. Brett Richison with FenceTrac. How's it going, bud?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be back.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you all know, most of you know, this is all Brett's brainchild anyways. So everything you see here is a Brett concoction to some degree. Actually, he's the one that wrote the first check, and then so he knew that I would kind of run with it and make it what it is.
I'm good about getting things started, man.
That is so true.
Ask Brian at FWA. We were the first vendor to sign up.
Yeah. Oh, for the fence show.
Yeah.
Really?
We were the first one, and I think it might have not have made a difference, but I think I'm going to pretend it did.
I think it did. They saw, FenceTrac's leading the way, and here they are again.
I'll go with that.
Yeah. That's good. Well, it's like the same thing. I always remember when we first built out the office, and you saw the neon sign, in the office, and you're like, "Can I have a neon sign on the show?" I'm like, "Yes," and that would look freaking awesome. It does look awesome.
When we're thinking about moving soon, so
right.
when we move it, we're looking at a place that has a little bit of an outdated area, and we're gonna probably want to fix it up.
Oh yeah,
this would look awesome, or something like this.
Yeah,
would look awesome.
You can get a bigger one, like a massive, just like
Sounds
a wall
pricey.
neon. Yeah, I bet they are not cheap. They are not cheap. So we're gathered here today in the Luxecore Studios in Bixby, Oklahoma.
We're actually going to talk about Luxecore today.
Yes, we're talking all about composite fencing. Actually, just composite everything, right?
Yeah.
But this is something you and I have talked about for several weeks, and we've really been on the kick of. I feel like there's a lot of consumers that have a desire for this product, but there's still the information out there is kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like it's very wishy-washy, especially when it comes to fence.
There's a lot of choices too now. It seems like there used to be. So Trex,
yep.
I think everyone knows who Trex is. They were probably the first to market for deck. That really, really made an impact.
The standard.
And then they were probably first to market, unless I'm missing something. But I remember Trex growing up in the industry was pretty much the only choice for a long time.
Yep.
And it's a great product. It's a great product. That's pretty much, but now I think there's so many different material makeups of this composite. And I think really composite just means a composition of combined materials.
Right.
It could be wood, little particles of wood, plastic.
Yep.
So it's just a mix of things, and a lot of them are geared towards low to no maintenance.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So if we want to get really techie and scientific,
I'm going to tell you
the
ASA.
No. I'm not going to ask you about the ASA cap. But we still need to understand that.
Can't say it.
It's okay. But I was thinking, composite in general, from my understanding and what I've read about it and stuff, it's dissimilar constituents combined together in one. Like that's the correct way to describe it. So you even start thinking about there can be some confusion out there about that. What about carbon fibers and Kevlar and all that? Fibers.
Yes.
So those are composites too,
we were even looking
right?
into fiberglass as an option for our product. And I just didn't know enough about it, but we might keep diving into that in the future, because I think fiberglass is another great option for fence material. I think there's even a product called FiberTech out there that makes
there is
a picket. Now they're kind of focusing more on the dog ear style still, where you screw it on, but it's supposed to be a lifetime fence board.
Yeah,
from what I understand.
Yeah, it's some type of I forgot what the fibers are in it, and then sawdust. So again, similar idea and concept, I think, to like a Trex or something. So let's talk about that, because Brett, I think that before we get into specific, composite types and how they build them, what have you seen now that you're manufacturing this stuff? What have you seen as like the two? It feels to me like there's a couple ways that would be considered standard for building a composite for fencing particularly, or even decking. But what have you seen with everyone you've been working with and making your own, how that's normally achieved?
Well, so on the decking, one thing, I think the composite products have all been really great. The Trex, all the moisture shields, they're all great, but they were designed to be screwed or fastened down because they can still move.
Right.
We found that out the hard way.
Right.
Well, FenceTrac is a floating system. And so we tried some of the decking boards in our floating system without fasteners. And they look good for a while, but similar to some of your wood products, they will move. They will move and they'll, so one, tongue and groove helps. But not everybody wants tongue and groove. They want a spaced or, they want something that you can't really use tongue and groove on. I can't really complain too much about the products, but we did realize that for fencing, if it's not fastened, because like your seclusions Trex and some of those, they still have a good amount of screws that hold everything into place. You're almost doing trim work on it.
That's right.
And it's a bulky, strong fence, but there is some labor involved with putting on all the trim work to keep things from moving. And so, and another thing, one con to composite is the weight.
Okay.
So
the weight from building it or the weight from
both
logistics,
shipping is something that we didn't like. So our Luxecore board, we only do 6-foot links right now.
Right.
And it's hollow. It's got the aluminum insert. That sucker weighs 10 pounds a piece.
Jeez.
And so let's say you have a semi and then you're trying to deliver product to a customer, it might max out on weight before it does on volume. And so that's one thing I think that I've heard people say about products like Trex or Moisture Shield when it comes to fencing is it's hard to bring in a lot of volume because the truck, let's say they bring in a whole truckload of material, the weight will max out at 45,000 where you kind of want to stop at for the truck to not get pulled over by the old hypo, but basically it'll max out on weight before, and so that amount of volume will only do, I'm just gonna guess, like maybe 1,000 feet or where something like if you get a whole truckload of cedar or something like vinyl that's lighter, you can get a lot more footage out of that semi. As far as product that you can have in inventory. So you're ordering more truckloads to make up the volume, and that costs money, because of the weight. So so that's a con to the composite that we found out. But one of the pros is the density, the strength, and a lot of people they're stuck on that word composite. I noticed because we sell a lot of vinyl, and vinyl does great in our system. It really does. But I think a lot of people, when it comes to throwing objects at it, like a baseball or hail, they worry about the vinyl being a thinner layer, hollow, chances of cracking.
Yep.
Where the composites can take a lot more abuse.
Yep. The durability is the highest, right?
So that's why we wanted to kind of come out with our own composite board.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point too, because there's a difference in price point wise as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you notice
you get a lot more material though too.
Absolutely. And yours, Brett, you have, so as we're diving into all these different composites on today's show, I wanted Brett to, we're going to go through and really like give due justice to what we didn't do last time on talking about Luxecore, because, we mentioned it, but we really didn't like go all the way in and explain like how you got there. I think the bulkhead of what we talked about months ago was just that, we were throwing a baseball at it and it didn't dent it. I mean, that's a great start.
It is.
That's an unbelievable start.
Yeah.
You know, that's how they used to sell the Simtech EcoStone before BuffTech bought them, right? Or Certainteed or whoever. But sorry, I've offended someone because I don't know where Simtech went, but it's a BuffTech, right?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainteed,
It's Certainteed, which BuffTech,
owns
or?
BuffTech.
Okay,
and then they acquired.
Never mind. I just gave you all the pub for whatever. But like, I remember seeing 10 years ago. When they were really starting to push that stuff out to the market, they had like pro golfers and stuff like just driving right into it.
I mean, it's great. Idea.
Super cool. Yeah. But that's, doing the baseball test over at the shop and stuff like that, seeing, that stuff. So let's talk about Luxecore. And that first iteration, we already mentioned it was a solid
So
board.
we kind of just thought, okay, if we just make it really beefy, a full 1 inch, hey, let's not do the hollow. There's a lot of companies doing the hollow. I'm like, let's just make it really beefy and strong where there's no hollow, no chances of cracking or whatever for impact. Well, it worked great as far as strength, but during our testing with the UV and the sun and the heat, it still had some slight movement because really the more materials, the more makeup of those materials, the more chances you actually have of it having more movement, and that's something I didn't think about is, everything's made up of molecules, particles, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And we all are. I mean, we all have movement, even our skin, everything is going to move, but how can we limit it in a structural way to where it doesn't affect the aesthetics of what we're trying to accomplish, right?
Right.
So, I've even noticed vinyl will move in the heat, but it's just very minimal and you hardly notice it. But some of these composite boards will move a little bit more because there's more material in there. Mm-hmm. It's like the more material you have, even the more chances it's going to bow out.
Yeah.
And so we thought by doing the solid deck board and going for strength that there's no way it's going to move. And no, we were wrong. I mean, so we learned the hard way that stuff still moves with tongue and groove and being thick and solid. Yeah. So actually the hollow even I think helps with the airflow and keeps it a little cooler, but it does take out some of the strength, takes out a lot of the weight though. And that's really the reason why I think a lot of them are hollowing out some of these composite boards is for weight. You just heard us talking about the weight. Well, they can still have a pretty equal strength if they make the, what am I trying to say? The gussets or the profile, strong enough and thick enough.
Right.
But,
so I feel like rewinding on that a little bit, Brett. I notice from an installing perspective that when I see like a Trex or like a Nature's Composite or something, they have a different look and feel than Luxecore.
Yeah, so a lot of the last 5 years, it was popular to use what they call WPC. And so we're talking about composites where you're mixing different materials.
Okay.
What the W stands for is wood particle composite, right?
Okay.
And so there are some negatives to having wood or I think Nature's, which is very green, which is great. They were using like hay, I think, or wheat, or it was wheat.
Wheat, yeah.
But there are some negatives to that, or cons, I should say. They soak up moisture. So a lot of the earlier composites or composites just even 5 years ago or some now, the WC can soak up some moisture, which it's just not my opinion. It's just fact. It will have greater chance of warping or movement.
Of course.
There. So by studying that, we went with this cellular foamed PVC. And what that is it's basically a really thick vinyl board. And the cellular is like air pockets. Like it's almost like a really hardened foam. And so I think that helps with the impact too. It kind of creates some cushion.
Sure.
But you can drop this stuff off down in the lake and leave it there and pick it up, and then you might have to wipe off the nasty slime and stuff, but it's not going to soak up the moisture.
Yeah.
So what is the kryptonite to this is the heat.
Heat.
So Guess what, though? We figured out how to solve that and minimize that to where you don't even notice movement, and that's the aluminum insert. And that's what makes Luxecore so cool and so, innovative.
Now, it is like buying 3 fences in one. like let's be clear. Because you buy the FenceTrac fence, and then you buy the Luxecore picket. When the Luxecore picket's like you're buying an aluminum fence and a composite fence. But I mean, that's why we're talking about this today, man, because it is so superior. Nothing is even comparable, right?
Correct.
I mean, am I wrong in saying that?
So we've definitely elevated the product line in the industry with this because it's the next level. But here's the thing. If you're going to spend that kind of money on a fence that's supposed to be no maintenance, and it's warping, I mean, you're going to be really disappointed and upset. And I think a lot of the products out there, they do really, really well. I'm not trying to bash them, but I think there's still some things that need to be addressed, and we might find out there's some things to address on this down the road. But I think we've elevated it to where it's about as no maintenance as you can get, and about as durable as you can get. And time will tell, but I think we've got something very special here for sure. And one thing about FenceTrac is if we find out there is anything that needs to be adjusted, we will jump on it immediately. So
I mean, look at what a lot of people don't know because they weren't around or we weren't national at that point when you and I were working on it together from the beginning. Was remember when we had the 5/8 tongue and groove cedar? Yeah,
we thought that would by being tongue and groove. We thought
no problem.
That's all it needs,
right?
But when you have something that thin and there's going to be movement, it'll cut. We found out that it'll cup.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to go, well, we noticed that when we use a 7/8, it doesn't cup or it's not visible if it doesn't have movement. Right. So yes, you have to go up in price point. That's a con to doing something this awesome.
Yep.
Is it's going to cost a few more bucks.
Yep.
But so does it's better than getting something that's almost great.
Yeah.
And then having to still replace it.
Yeah.
It's like we FenceTrac, we try to have integrity. We really if we do something that disappoints somebody, it's not on purpose by any means. It's we're doing our best efforts as a company to really make something that people can be proud of and we stand behind it, and that they can go, man, that stuff is awesome. It's what they said it was. And so, and that's the goal, but you have to pay for it.
Yeah. It is. I hate to say it. It is what it is. Like the price, good old, the good old 7/8 thick.
You know what we're doing on our website now?
Yeah.
We market it. We have a good, better, best.
Okay.
And so good is your wood.
Yep.
It does good. It's beautiful. It stains, but you're going to have some contraction, expansion. Those stupid boards, no matter how dried out they are, they will shrink some more. And you might have to add another one here and there.
And most of those cedar ones that you're using on the wood are already kiln dried too. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
But what's crazy is when they're bundled up like that, I didn't realize how much they still collect a lot of moisture together.
Really?
And so when the installers go put them in the frames, they dry out again. It's almost like getting another dry out because they collect moisture when they're together. Even with all that wrap on, like, the lumber mills will put that. What is that wrap made out of? Probably.
It's almost like Tyvek.
Yeah.
I mean, really, right?
And it's supposed to keep the moisture off of it. But you know how things they find their way into anything. And so everything swells up, but you don't realize it because it feels dry. And then you get them laid out in the sun and in the panels, and they contract again. And so that's the negative that we found out to a floating system with the wood is that there's that's why we push horizontal on cedar is because if it does contract and fall, the boards fall down. Usually if the installer does go all the way to the top, that 3-inch U channel will hide anything that's settled. But if you do vertical, no matter how tight you get those boards, there's a really good chance you're going to have a little bit of an air gap in the summertime, like the heat waves, like that stuff will contract. And then we'll get some calls saying, hey, we love your fence, but this cedar looks like it has a little daylight. And you're like, it'll swell back up, or you can go in and take the top off and add one little piece, and it shouldn't do it anymore. But that's annoying, but it's nature of wood. And if you think about it, when you nail up a privacy fence, I had a customer one time that was so picky. He wanted me to take a crowbar and push the board so tight so that they wouldn't see any air gap between it, so daylight in between them. Because you walk by a dog ear fence and you can see the daylight. You can almost kind of see through it
if you go fast enough.
Or see it through an angle. Yep. And I was telling him, sir, it's not going to make a difference. It's after you nail it, it's going to contract, and you're still going to, no matter how much I push these boards over. He's like, I've worked in lumber yards for years. And I just said, yes, sir, and did what he told me. But sure enough, I went back on that job about 6 months later, and it was the same as any job that you barely pushed on. I mean, it all contracts, it all moves around. And so that's our good. Better would be the vinyl. And there's nothing wrong with vinyl. We love it. The con to vinyl would be the impact, if hail or
same thing as the vinyl fence.
Awesome colors in vinyl now that look like real wood.
Yeah.
They look amazing. But the composite's just that extra durable with this aluminum core in here. Great for commercial applications, trash enclosures.
Yes.
So that's where all this comes into play. You're going to spend a little more, but God, man, you get the durability that's just there, So we're really proud of it. Have you felt this board yet? I mean, it is solid. It's all there.
Yeah, it's a beast. It's heavy. I was like, oh man, that actually has some weight to it there.
But when the customer,
I guess it's true,
holds it in their hand though, they see they can feel the value.
That is true. I will tell you, for those watching on YouTube, as you sit here and see this honking beast, and this is half a board. Is this 3 feet?
It might not even be 3 feet.
It might be 2.5 feet. Mm-hmm. Hang on. No. But like this thing is heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right. You could literally hand this to someone. They're like, good God. And you're like,
if I could
don't worry, we'll get 13 of these on your fence. Holy shit.
We would sell every project if we were able to put that in their hand every time.
The ones that, like the wall there and the one that we used at the Home and Garden show, I forgot, were the first gen.
They were. Yeah.
Right?
They did not have the aluminum insert.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've ever actually touched one till today that was longer than 6 inches. Those little, that guy right there.
Yeah.
So remember, like the little ones.
Now that you mentioned that, we have a really awesome sample box that we're sending out for people interested in the Luxecore product.
And if you're listening to this online.
And so we have 4 colors. We have a Harbor Gray, which is kind of a light gray.
Here, hand those out to me. I'll put them on the. Yeah. I'll Vanna White them for everyone while you're describing them.
Okay, we have a.
For over 30 years, Southwest Automated Security has been the premier provider of gate operators, access controls, CCTV, and so much more. Visit southwestautomated.com today, taking dealers to the next level.
Harbor Gray. And everything has a little bit of that black streaking to give it that wood grain look.
Yeah, so it looks like wood.
We have a teak that gives it that kind of that cedar. We just call it teak because it has a little bit of a tropical look to it, but it looks a lot like cedar too to me. And then we have a brown because a lot of people have a request for brown.
Yep.
Has a little bit of black streaking. And then we have black because the reason we have a black board is the modern stuff, the black frame with the black is getting very popular.
Absolutely.
And it looks really clean, really awesome. So I'm very confident in all these colors. They will fade one shade slightly from, from our experience, but it is minimal. But where everyone has the concern is the black color. They're like, Brett, that's probably the biggest question we get is they don't question the brown or the gray or the teak. The black, they're like, how much do you think that will change? I think it'll be about a shade lighter in about 3 or 4 years. Only time will tell because this is only been out for 6 months.
Right.
But like I said, if we find out anything immediately, we'll add more UV protection. We'll figure it out. But I think the black is going to hold up great.
So I know you don't want to talk about it, but this has a capstock on it.
Yes.
The only thing I know about vinyl is capstock. So see that?
You asked me this in the last show.
Yes.
I couldn't pronounce.
Because it's ASA capstock,
yeah,
right?
that's easy to say, but it's the abbreviation for.
So why that's important is as far as I'm concerned and what I've seen, so this is my opinion, all of the high quality manufacturers of vinyl and even these composites are using a capstock to give that finish and protection, which gives you that UV. So again, it's different than the WPC composites, right?
Yeah.
Because you have it. That's an unfinished. This doesn't mean it's bad. It's just different.
There are some WPCs though that are doing a capstock on top of that.
They are. Who's doing that? You can give them a shout out.
I don't remember who, but there are some.
You saw one? I ain't never seen it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
They're still doing a capstock.
Oh.
But there's still chances of, moisture gets in everywhere.
Right,
so the ends are still kind of risky.
Okay.
But it does help. It does help.
Okay. But why? Is it cheaper to produce
I think that's why. I think if it has the wood particle in there, it's less. I feel it.
Well, what like one of them that we talked to years and years ago, we knew that they were using milk jugs and right, like literally recycled trash.
Can you pronounce
which I
that
love
for the?
Okay, here we go. Brett pulled this up on his. Yes, ASA is acrylonitrile styrene acrylate. Acrylonitrile styrene acrylate. So it's a type of thermoplastic polymer that's used as a capstock material known for UV protection, right? We knew that, especially for the dark colors.
Yeah.
And that's where I had first seen it, high performance surface coating required to protect the elements and prevent fading.
Right.
So I feel like years and years ago, that terminology really became popular because of the vinyl guys. When they started like a Buff Tech or something like that, right? Where they started producing the wood grain look, vinyls. Right. And then you do the first like the first round and they didn't work, so you have to figure out, all right, how do we not absorb all the heat?
Definitely the pioneers of
sure.
a lot of this stuff because the vinyl guys were trying to get more of a wood grain look, but they had to go through a lot of testing and a lot to get, and so like you said, it's like selling 3 different products. You got your aluminum insert core.
Yep.
Then you have your cellular PVC foam. That's almost like a really dense. How would you describe that PVC? I mean, if you look at it, it's you can barely see the air pockets in there, right? Like they're really small.
Yeah. It almost looks like concrete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see if that actually works on the camera again.
And then you have the third layer of the UV cap stock.
Yeah.
That's pretty popular in decking these days.
Right. And
so
again, if you feel like you're missing out, like we're doing something off of what you're hearing, go to YouTube, Protecting Your Radius podcast. You can see all this stuff because we're holding it, we're showing it and all that. So I think that's pretty important to mention that for all our listeners out there and stuff.
And I'm still learning about all this stuff, so I might even be incorrect on some of these things.
Yeah.
But I think most of it's pretty dang accurate, on everything. So, if you're a real techie composite guy, shoot Nate a comment, because we want feedback on this stuff. And,
the big thing is understanding it's the durability of it. And again, as we've been talking about it and trying to set a precedence out there in the marketplace for even our own market, like we're a huge wood market, right? Right. How long did you build out in the field? 15 years?
Since I was a kid,
teenager. So you spent a good 15, 20 years at least.
Maybe even longer,
out in the field,
maybe
right?
20. Yeah, probably 20. Right.
So in the field, so exactly what works, which is how the idea of FenceTrac even came up, right?
Yeah, because we would do these beautiful jobs, and back then steel post wasn't as popular. Right. We had to really, talk. And
neither was stain,
right? And stain wasn't either. Right. But even with steel post, I noticed in the 2000s we started doing a lot more round with the Simpson brackets. Yep. We started. Postmaster was around. That's what's crazy is Postmaster's been around a long time, but it didn't really take off till these last 5-10 years.
Right.
It's actually been around.
You know why?
Like
you know why? Because the patent's up.
But
just saying. I mean,
but
that's how everybody has their own postmaster now. I am going to call you all out.
I think really why it took so long to take off is that lumber used to be a little bit better, and everything's rushed out and everything's gotten cheaper, and so even though that was available and it was a great idea, people didn't start getting fed up with these wood posts or back rails until just really recently. And
we know from basically during the Bush era that the EPA had changed how the pressure treating actually
it's
worked.
Better for the environment, but it doesn't protect.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I'm going to get like someone from the EPA like to actually do a show with me for them to sell me on why. Like
that change.
Like how is that actually better for the environment? Because this stuff like composite, like I get that, especially when you talk to some of these manufacturers where they're using recycled plastics, where they're reusing things, even the sawdust and the glue, and you start hearing about, you're like, man, it actually is like an eco-friendly option, right? Like we're repurposing a bunch of trash into something that's freaking awesome. So the pressure treating thing, you know, they're like, well, we're protecting like kids and pets. And I'm like, I still haven't found a lot of dogs that are, you know, on a wood post. I mean, it's possible.
And honestly, even if even if you're not using recycled components, but if you're building something that lasts, you're cutting down less trees.
That's true.
And so I got a feeling, I mean, it's coming. You know, our government gets involved in everything, and it's probably a good thing on some things like trees, of course. But they're probably going to put limitations on these mills one day. I mean, I read that we cut down the size of Ireland every year. Now we're replanting though, but how long does it take those trees to mature to where they're can be cut again? Well, they have stuff to make them grow faster now and ways of doing it. But someone told me that the reason why a lot of these boards are warping now is because the growth is rushed.
Yeah, that's true.
And even in the Japanese cedar, that I've heard some complaints on twisting, warping. They said, well, it's not so much that it's the Japanese cedar, it's the way they're rushing the growth of the tree. And so if it's a young tree that they're rushing the growth, and it's you know, one that's mature is not going to have as much movement. But we're a fast-paced society, and materials aren't as available as they were. Because honestly, redwood used to be the top choice for fence boards.
Yeah.
It got scarce, so they went to red cedar. Now, look what's happening to Western red. It's getting scarce. It's getting more expensive. So that's why they're bringing in the import Japanese cedar. But it's even hard to keep up. So I hear a lot of these where they're growing, you know, they're rushing everything, and that's why everything's moving. It's not lasting as long. It's not as good as of lumber. And so, which that's one reason why FenceTrac was created. And it's like, hey, yes, the price point is way up here, but you're also, your value, your return on investment, you know, is worth it. You know, so it's like, you know, you can sell them on, hey, you're going to do 3 of these fences by the time you do, you know, you can
well,
the ratios.
And the one thing that I've seen as basically an opposite of the composite fencing is even that we're now finding steel and aluminum fencing manufacturers mimicking this stuff, right? They're making this stuff out of aluminum now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, which is cool for weight.
Which is great,
right?
Which is great.
I just feel like you lose something. Like this is a more I don't know. What do you think about that?
Even I think you're right, and it's funny you said that, because when we created this logo, do you see the browns and there's some greens in there.
Yeah, the greens and the brown.
If you're too modern, you're cold. I love modern. Modern's awesome, but you know, really, even back in the 80s, there was a lot of modern architecture with the, do you remember like the glass shower blocks and stuff?
Oh,
even in the 70s, it was very clean line. But I think why modern is here to stay, and because they're combining the natural wood elements with the dark black. And because if you have too much dark and too much black without a little bit of natural, it becomes cold. It looks like a bachelor pad. you know, like when we were all out of high school and you decorated the room, like I'm sure our wives
it's like
just shaking
dark
their heads.
blue,
and
like
your
the
couches
floors are black. Yeah, everything's black leather.
And you're
like,
like, because we're simplifying everything. We just want to focus on what we want to focus on.
Right.
But when you get married or you have someone serious relationship and they come over and start adding some color, well, that's kind of what the composite does to a modern frame system.
There's nothing black in my house now that you just said
it adds some life to it. So.
That's good. No, that's good. Yeah, I think that the design aspect of all of these things is very important, especially for a high-end fence, because that is what you're drawn to buy, right? And even when we're selling it, Brett, that's one thing that I use as a sales tactic with it is like look at the fit and finish. Like you look at that wall there and it has a different aesthetic feel, but it has a consistent feel, right? And that's one thing we can't get out of wood. Now, some people would argue like, well, that's what I like. I like the fact that the wood is abstract and it kind of does what it wants to do. Right. Yeah, sure. Until it does what you don't want it to do. Right. And then you're in the scenario like you described where you're going, well, no, I really kind of wish I did have full privacy. And it kind of, in closing on that, the FenceTrac system, because it's floating and everything, is 100% privacy.
Yeah, with the tongue and groove.
Yeah, with the tongue and groove. So that's a big deal.
But do you know what's hot right now?
Oh, the spaced. Yeah, I know.
I got something I can share with you since it's...
Is it a secret?
It kind of is.
All right, well, just tell me. No one's watching, so we're okay.
We're coming out with a 1x3.
Oh.
With no tongue and groove.
Okay. Is it going to have a...
We're going to start with 2 color. It's going to have the aluminum core in it because... Oh, yeah, you have
to.
Yeah, because that would warp even more.
Yeah.
I mean...
because nothing's holding it.
It's going to be flimsy. Yeah. So we have to do that core to make that work.
Do a 6-foot span?
We're going to do a 6-foot span on it.
Wow.
And we'll have these really cool spacers. And so that way you can have that louvered or spaced look.
Yeah.
Because that's been hot for 5 years, but we've just been telling people, hey, we'll sell you the frame. You can space it. We have actually some little donut spacers we sell, but we've got a whole new way of looking at it and a better design. And hopefully Nashville and FenceTrac will be able to, how I like to tell a little how we might release the next product line.
Right.
And so all the competitors, if you want to find out what Brett's up to, just watch the podcast.
Yeah, watch the podcast.
Brett
He'll tell you
the beans on everything.
He'll tell you the secret. So. Now they're all going to be there at Nashville with the freaking 1x3s. Get out of here. Get out of here. Oh, that's awesome.
We did file a patent though on that aluminum insert. Yeah. So it's pending, so we don't know what claims we'll get. But man, if we lock that in, that'll be killer.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It is super unique. I've never seen anything like it. And when you first showed me that version of it, I was like, "This is going to work." But I immediately, when I saw it, and especially with the teeth that come through off of each side,
Yeah. So we did a couple different designs, and that was the one that bonds to the material the best. I don't know if they can see it, but there's these little. It's not just a rectangle insert. It has like these little edges on it that almost like a T shape, a shape like a T, a capital T that pass through the rectangle shape. And that's what grabs that material better, and it adds more rigidity. Because we found out just the rectangle, the width of it isn't good enough. You have to so yeah, there's even some design and science in the what shape your core is. If you just do now, we looked into steel because aluminum, is price point. It costs more to do. Right. I mean, we looked into a steel insert in there, but then you get into the weight issue even more. So I mean,
I was gonna say as heavy as this thing is, if this had steel in it, it'd be like every picket's 20 pounds. I mean, you can imagine the guys walking out with like 4 pickets.
Because what do they carry on wood? Like 13 at a time. They'd be only able to carry
Yeah, literally 4. You'd be like, God dang. You get a big old boy like me out there. I'm like 5 or 6, but blown up, I got a third of a panel. I mean, we'd all have to have
it's a lot of walking back and forth.
Nah, you'd have to get the little skid steer things or something. Might as well. Like, hey, if you're going to be installing FenceTrac Luxecores, you're going to have to
getting off subject, but I saw something on Facebook where a guy's making these little trailers.
Okay.
And I don't remember where I saw it on. It was on one of the Facebook pages, but he was, and I didn't even know what it was until I looked into it. I think so if you're listening to this.
It's not that Gorilla.
I don't think so. It's something I've never even seen. No, he's making picture a wood rack that when you're like pointing pickets and you're stacking it or something on wheels and with a hitch that you can put behind like your skid steer or your little, the
stand-up track ones.
And I thought, that's bulky and it'd be hard to take to a job. But if you're on a big project and it's a lot of walk-in, that'd probably be genius. You know? So it's just it's a mini fence trailer to help you because, when I was installing, dude, I was in shape. I bet if we had Apple Watches back then that track your steps, God knows how many steps
you were properly jocked.
Yeah. But I mean, that's why whenever we were trained when we were installing, by God, if there's something that you can pick up on the way back, you don't waste your steps. I mean,
it's the same thing your dad taught me when I got into the contracting side and left Ameristar. A lot of people don't know Cliff was the one that trained me how to do fence, right? Yeah. And we were still working together and all that stuff. And that was the thing your dad always told me. He was like, no wasted step. He's like, if you're going to walk back and forth from the truck, have something in your hand, you have to be moving something all the time.
Yeah.
And once I figured that out, I was like, damn.
Yeah, like a good example is like back when we did 4x4s before steel got, or even steel, whatever. A lot of times you grade your post in or go ahead and string line them and cut them off first, right? Yep. And so you're going to have all these little scraps all over the customer's yard that if you're coming out with a 2x4s on your shoulder or you're coming out with boards on your shoulder, how many times does the new guy go right back to the truck when he could have grabbed something and saved more time?
Pick up the trash.
Yeah. That stuff makes a difference. You don't think it would, but it's just be efficient.
Yep.
So
in the manufacturing world that you're now in, they call that Six Sigma.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
there's a whole protocol. Yeah. So that was what really amazed me when your dad told me that and then started showing me. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, this is the same thing that they do at Ameristar. How do you produce more efficiency out of the same line, or how do you modify a line of manufacturing to create more, but whatever you're trying to do, because sometimes we're trying to reduce cost. Sometimes we're trying to increase production, maybe do both at the same time. Hey, that'd be great too.
Well, if you got kind of assembly line situation and you got one guy taking way too many steps to go get the next thing that he's doing. Yeah. Something needs to be adjusted.
Right.
So it flows.
Yep. Absolutely.
So similar in the install. It needs to flow.
Yep. So
I'm stoked. I mean, this stuff is selling fast. There's definitely a need for it because people. I'm going to be honest with you. It's pricey. I mean, and I was nervous that it wasn't going to move because I'm like, man, we're like to that max price point of what I'm used to seeing. Boy, was I wrong. People are ordering it left and right. And it's strange because they will kind of go, your stuff's really expensive. And they'll kind of complain about the price point with the wood in it. And then they'll come back and say, hey, I didn't know you had that composite. We're ready to go. We want to order this. And you're like, well, that's even more. But they're like, the value is there. Yep. And so it's really blown my mind that it makes me so happy that we went ahead and actually solved this issue because there was a need for it.
Yeah.
So
we've got some podcasts coming out here over the next couple of weeks, Brett, where we're talking about that value. Yeah. Like, how do you drive value in the marketplace and how do you sell off value? It is not easy. It's hard.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. And especially when you can get out there and instead of just putting up, a plain old privacy wood fence or something like that, being able to do something like a FenceTrac system with the Luxecore product. I mean, it's even something us as on the installation side, we can do as a company, as a contractor, go back and be, I always go back to my FenceTrac jobs. I'm like, yeah, we did that one. And people are, oh, wow, how long ago was that? 8 years ago. Jeez, it looks brand freaking new. There might be some dirt on it or something, but, all things considered, I mean, they look
I always
really
tell people
good.
about my house. Like, I'm like, yeah, my product about dang near broke me. But, man, when I've had it up 2 years, and some of my neighbors did the standard steel post and privacy, and theirs is already looking pretty rough. And
yours
mine looks identical,
brand new
to win it. Win. And I didn't even have the Luxecore at that time. I put vinyl in it.
Right.
I have Vecca vinyl in my fence. And
that thing's been up 2 years.
2 years, and it looks identical.
I mean, it really does.
To when I put it.
I mean, it looks like you just put it in a month or two ago.
And so it's a good feeling, even though that investment was costly.
Sure.
Every time I pull up my driveway, that thing looks brand new, and it's just a great feeling. So
that's awesome.
It's worth the investment. It really is.
Yeah. Check out all the stuff that FenceTrac has going on. Everybody can catch everything at FenceTrac.com, right?
Yes.
All the specs, all the material data sheet, any of that kind of technical data.
We have brochures that you can download with links, and so if you're like Brett, we can send you brochures as well. But if you need something in a rush, you can download about anything on our website.
Okay,
so
that's great. www.FenceTrac.com. I think it's over my shoulder here on the video, right there. But hey, we'll wrap this thing up, put a bow on it. You got any other thoughts or anything you want to share with everybody as we inundate them with Composite?
I just love how the industry keeps evolving. And I love being a part of that. We're trying to make things better.
Yeah.
And cause we want customers to be happy with what they purchased from us and not just last 2 years. And, yes, we like repeat business, but you got to feel a little guilty if something doesn't last more than 5 years. I mean, come on. So yeah, I just love seeing the industry evolve and commodity. Or what am I trying to say?
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie. God, I can't say it. It's almost worse as an ASA cap. But it's just awesome seeing all the guys like Dan Wheeler and you and My Fence Life, Dan over there, and I am guilty of not tuning in this summer because it's been kind of hectic. But man, in the winter, I'm like almost watching everybody's podcast, everybody's show. So don't forget about us out there, guys. I know you guys are slammed right now.
Yeah, tune
into this. We're trying to bring you new stuff that's going on. That's why I do like spilling the beans and telling what we're working on, because I want to keep people. We're always evolving. We're always learning something new, and it's cool to do that together.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely, we appreciate you, and we're excited. We're excited to continue to sell the Luxecore product, push it out there with all our FenceTrac, and then of course we got the old high planes. We ain't gonna forget about that.
Yeah.
We're doing a little market push down here in Oklahoma right now. Yeah. We've been talking about that together. So
that's an awesome product.
Yes. So excited for all the stuff that you guys are bringing out to the marketplace, Brett, and I appreciate you coming in
it's always
in
fun.
Your studio here, so we can talk about.
I love being here. It's awesome.
Talk about this stuff. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, you can find FenceTrac on all the social media channels, as well as you can always email us or hit us up with a DM. Our email is info@protectingyourradius.com. But
thanks for having me, Nate.
Absolutely, buddy. Good to see you again, and we appreciate each one of you. And if we said something wrong about Composite, sue us. No, don't sue us. Send us an email. We're all going to continue to get better together, and it's these heavy products like FenceTrac's Luxecore. They're going to pave the way for the future of fencing. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the Protecting Your Radius podcast from the Luxecore Studios in Bixby, Oklahoma. Thanks for sticking around, and connect with us and all of our partners at www.protectingyourradius.com. We want to thank our premier partners, Luxecore, the newest line of premium quality composite infill to slide into your FenceTrac fence system. Frame your style today. Also, FenceTrac, the world's first patented standalone stain machine. Utilizing flood coat technology, FenceTrac covers boards, pickets, posts, and any type of dimensional wood you can think of. And what better way to use your FenceTrac machine than to use the easy application Wood Defender family of stains. Wood Defender goes on easy and covers in one coat with no back brushing. And of course, the true power of our show is you, the listener. Please rate and review our show on whatever platform you consume this content. Your 5-star likes and reviews help other contractors get the message that we all want to be better and do better. And in the construction world, we can never forget that before you can be great, you've got to be good. Before you can be good, you've got to be bad. But before you can even be bad, you've got to try.